Good evening and welcome to the June 1st, 2022 regular council meeting. I am filling in for the mayor this evening. And I'll start off with a land acknowledgement that we've started doing that since the beginning of the year. We honor all of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We acknowledge that the ancestral and traditional lands on which we gather are land of the Blackfoot Confederacy and Treaty 7 territory, a traditional meeting ground for many Indigenous peoples, and in particular our neighbors, Siksika Nation, on whose traditional territory we work, live, and play, and on whose traditional territory we stand and where Strathmore resides. And with that, I will move to confirm the agenda. Is there any councillors that would like to add anything? Administration.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Administration is requesting that Council add item 8.4, a proclamation for National Indigenous History Month, to the agenda.
Great, thank you. Could I get a motion to confirm the agenda as amended, please?
Your Worship, I would move that we move the agenda for June the 1st as amended, regular council meeting.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? Thank you. All right, and now, actually, I'm going to open it up for any public comments. I see there's a lot more people than normal here, so if there's anybody that would like to make any comments about any of the agenda items, you can approach now. All right, seeing none. All right, we're going to move on to item 5.1, which is the delegation for the Vault Cultural Collective Society. Please introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Right. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Montgomery, Town Council members, and Town Administration. I am Carolyn Steeves. I'm Chair of the Vault Cultural Collective, and I and other Vault board members and volunteers are pleased to be joining me tonight so we can update you on the progress of our joint venture and request the opportunity to discuss 4 recommendations that the Vault Board of Directors feel need to be addressed to move the project forward. Prior to receiving your information package, many of you may not have known much about the Vault. The project began 22 months ago in August 2020 by bringing together not-for-profit groups with a philosophy that supported arts, culture, and history in Strathmore. Working together, it was determined that we share many common interests and challenges. Many felt that even though we had a long-standing presence in the community, we felt unrecognized. The master plan commissioned by the previous council supported and encouraged the creation of an umbrella organization that would bring together not-for-profits and give them a voice in the community. We believe the Vault Cultural Collective, by default, has taken on that umbrella role. Incredibly, we had the offer of a wonderful building and location. How could this opportunity meet the needs of all the groups? Through collaboration and compromise, progress began. As the slides catch your attention and you see people participating in many activities and events, you are seeing the Vault and the collective at work. You are seeing thousands and thousands of volunteer hours, a labor of love and commitment to support and promote not only the arts, but mental health, well-being, and the connection among residents in our community. The isolation of the COVID years has reinforced the need we share to connect. The Vault is a place for all ages. The first challenge was to create a place with a purpose and a way to draw the public to a storefront that would give all groups a place to call home. A gift shop, a gallery, and an online store have been the result. All inventory is handcrafted by local artists, 50 thus far, and made available for sale at on a commission basis. Cabinets were constructed to house historical artifacts, and tracking put in place to display wall art, all made possible by monetary donations from member organizations. A troupe of board members, volunteers became the driving force of the entire organization. The result is a unique store with a special ambiance and a feel that is appreciated by many guests and customers. Our second challenge was to make the Vault a central information hub to promote work for all things cultural. We needed to let the community know we existed and that we are what we are about. To this end, we have created a monthly newsletter. We email information regarding promotions and make extensive use of social and print media. We also promote the vault and the organizations we represent at public events. In addition, we have made presentations to visiting groups, hosted field trips, and provide a meeting space for volunteers. The collective is growing in numbers, experience, reputation, and visitors. We would like to see this umbrella organization flourish and the vault become a reputable source of innovation and ideas. We would like to be the must-see place for visitors in Strathmore. Before I pass the microphone on to Donalda Ledeen, on behalf of the entire Board of Directors, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you from the town of Strathmore for the past 22 months of support, and especially the last 11 months of our operation. We trust from this presentation, you will see the vault as a viable organization ready to serve the needs for increased awareness and exposure of arts and culture and history in Strathmore. I would encourage you to visit the vault often. The building is alive and constantly changing, a reflection of our community, rural reimagined. The vault can be our legacy to Strathmore culture. So I would like to now introduce Donalda Ledeen, who is the Vice Chair of the vault.
Good evening. It seems like it's been a while since I was in front of council, but it's 7 years since we did the summer games. And that was quite a project, and I enjoyed being a part of it. But tonight I am part of the vault group, and I've been asked to present more of the financial side. And you need to know that this is a very passionate group. We have gone on passion and energy and retired experience. So our work schedule and our skill sets that we bring to the table have been very varied. But we thank you for giving us time to present tonight. As Carolyn has reported, we are a passionate group of volunteers who have worked together to fashion a permanent home for the vault and for nonprofit groups in general, but particularly those who have a passion for culture, art, and history. We try to make the most of every dollar, and we have few of those. We are aware of our financial limitations and realize we could cease to exist without the support of town council, local organizations, and individuals. Beginning a new venture during COVID has been, needless to say, quite a challenge. In the 11 months, we have laid out the foundation, created a retail gift shop, gallery, rental space for members to hold meetings, and have recently launched vault programming. The gift shop and gallery have an inventory of approximately $50,000. You need to know we don't own any of that inventory, and we have no control over what inventory we're going to have. It's like Christmas every time a new parcel comes in. Successful branding of the new collective will take time. Although we've done lots in 11 months, we know it's not where we want it to be just yet. It is with the concern for that time that we come to you this evening. Be reminded, the day-to-day operations are done 100% by volunteers, and the back work is also done by volunteers. Moving forward, we know that establishing consistent financial support is crucial. It seems impossible for the collective to successfully access grants. In an initial grant requirement that is often common for societies is that you have to have existed for at least 2 years or more. So when we applied in December and in the fall for 2 different grants, we weren't awarded the grants, partly I think because we have such little stability in our organization at this time. An additional common requirement is that you do a matching grant. So if you want $10,000, you have to match the $10,000, and we haven't come anywhere near that yet. For example, also, we couldn't apply for a SIP grant because we couldn't manage the employer's percentage of the pay. We just don't have enough money coming in on a monthly basis. At this point, we do not generate sufficient funds to match a grant of any significance, and even to apply to get on the casino list, you have to have been in existence for 2 years or more. And once you get on that list, you still have to wait because there's lots of people on the list for your turn to perhaps be accepted. Cash to establish the Vault Cultural Society came from the Strathmore Lions Club, 3 member organizations, and a philanthropist for a total of $7,500. We are very pleased in our audited statement to show a balance of $7,262 in spite of the fact that we spent the whole $75,000 that was given to us to begin with. So we've generated enough to replace, but not to go forward. Our current balance this month is $80,130.14. We are pleased that we've maintained this amount of money in our bank. We are in the black, and we tend to make very frugal choices on how we're spending our money. Our proposed budget for 2022 also is included in your package of information, but because we have not had a full year of operation, those figures are all purely estimates. As you can see on the town's 2020 expense budget, the amount assigned to culture is a very small portion of the total budget for recreation, parks, and culture. In an effort to seek our external financial advice, we have consulted with Wendy Gerbrandt and Christopher Steeves and of Community Futures Wild Rose and Diane Barrett, all trying to help us with business plan and grant applications. With their assistance, we applied for 2 major grants between June and December of 2021, but as I said earlier, were denied both of them. As well, we have had financial assistance in setting up our records and banking accounts with Linda Stead. And all of these individuals support our requests today of council. Many members of the collective were part of the interviews and surveys done to create the master plan that you created for recreation and culture. When reviewing that document, we believe that the Vault Cultural Collective Society, with the support of the town, has taken on the responsibility recommended in the report that you create an umbrella organization for the arts and culture. We haven't ever been told that that's what we are, but we have become to assume that on your behalf, we have become this group. We cannot do any long-term financial planning without a better understanding of your commitment to this project. The Vault needs to be included under your umbrella. Providing assistance must go beyond simply bringing a group together. Our financial feasibility over the long term cannot just be supported by the grant process. We anticipate it will take at least 4 years for us to get firmly established in the community. We ask you to confirm that the master plan objectives for recreation and culture are not just going forward for recreation, as it is presented in the town's 22-24 business plan. That's what we kind of read from that plan, but the objectives for the culture should be included in that plan. If we are not included in your 22-24 business plan, where do you stand on the development of culture? The master plan lays out recommendations for the town, and we encourage you to pursue those. From the Town of Strathmore's 2021 Citizen Survey, satisfaction with culture and art is the lowest value of all the areas surveyed. This again confirms that the community want more done by council in the area of culture. The 1-year MOA between the town and the Vault Collective Society expires September the 1st, 2022. The current MOA has provided the town with a physical presence in the community for arts and culture that has been long needed. We believe the work that has been done to create the Vault in this beautiful historic building will have a positive impact on future cultural surveys. Public space with a purpose of promoting and connecting art, culture, and history will create a cultural hub that shows the town of Strathmore supports culture. The Vault is a project that can help Strathmore be an influencer in the areas of art, culture, and history. We can help employ more artists, create a cultural space in the community, and importantly, provide a draw to downtown revitalization. Council has publicly demonstrated can publicly demonstrate its support of the vault concept by ensuring that we are included in your town website, which at present we aren't. With financial support, we would hire part-time staff to assist with the development, growth, and promotion of the vault. Until such time as we can successfully apply for grants or a casino or are able to build interest for the project from additional local philanthropists, the support of local government will be essential. Commitment to programming be they recreation or culture, cannot be sustained in the long term without some paid staff. Our volunteer base will continue to grow and be a significant part of the work of the vault, but support of paid staff would be a valuable asset. As with all reporting, there are two sides to every story. We don't know for sure what your vision is. Are we part of the cultural umbrella? Are we meeting the needs and expectations of the community? With this as background, I ask the Council to consider the following 4 requests. Number 1, it is requested that Council confirm that the master plan remains the objective of the town with respect to culture, and in particular with respect to recommendation number 5, which says to assist in the development of an umbrella organization for arts and cultural community. Number 2, our request is that a new MOA be put in place that extends the current MOA by a minimum of 4 years. Request number 3, we request financial support to add a part-time employee to help with the work of the society, or alternative, that the town provides staff resource to assist in developing grant submissions as we build capacity. Number 4, our request is notably absent from the town's website is an equivalent menu choice for the arts and culture, to contrast to that provided for the recreation areas. Creation of an art and culture tab could bring up information on the collective, including information about the vault, building, location, and hours of operation, and the most recent newsletters, as well as links to the umbrella organizations. As you deliberate this presentation and our requests, consider the positive impact that this space can have on the community. Please also visit the vault so you can experience something that is unique to Strathmore. In conclusion, we thank you for your support that you have provided over this year of growth. We hope you sense our passion for this project and that you see it as a project worth continuing and investment and support. We would appreciate that that our requests be addressed in a timely manner. As I've mentioned before, this MOA runs out on the 1st of September. We are proud to bring increased awareness and exposure of art, culture, and history to Strathmore. And together, this can be a legacy to Strathmore. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I'll open up to council with any questions that they have or comments.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The council can I add in 4 requests from the vault to the cultural collective to administration and direct administration to return to council with a report.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments about that motion?
He's going to speak to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind speaking to the motion. So in your presentation, you said that you're looking forward to being a positive impact on the culture of Strathmore. I would amend that to say you're already a positive impact on the town of Strathmore. As you were talking, I wrote down 4 personal testimonials I have for the impact you're having on the culture of this town. So I am a high school art teacher. My students have displayed work at the vault. My mom, who's here today, hi Mom, she currently has work for sale at the vault. My daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, sang at the women's conference in town, which was in conjunction with the vault. And today I did a historical walking tour with my class, and we were able to stop at the vault and get a tour of one of Strathmore's most beautiful historical buildings. So we already, that's just one person, has at least four connections to this fantastic cultural organization. And that's at a time during COVID. They were able to get that much up and running. And so it's a rare opportunity that we have the whole gang here to just thank you guys for the thousands of man hours you've put into getting this thing up and running. I just think there's so much potential for revitalizing our downtown, for bringing all these different cultural groups under one collective. When I was looking at our notes package, people don't realize that Communities in Bloom has joined you, or the Hospice Society. I think that makes people aware of just the potential here for even more groups to come in. You've got Chestermere. It's really just the beginning of something really great. So thank you for all the work you've done. And I look forward to getting the report back from administration so we can discuss your requests further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I commend you on the incredible work that you've done, and I think your timing is really perfect, because I believe that because of the work of our administration and the considerable initiatives that are happening in this community most recently are going to open up opportunities that will allow us to bring a new source of energy into the downtown, and you're the heart of that energy, undoubtedly. I'm wondering, I want to give some acknowledgement to the Strathmore Wheatland Arts Collective that started this, and we struggled unbelievably over and over, experiencing failures. And it was because there was no central space around which to develop this context. And so having that space, shout out to Ron and Kelly Warwick and the amazing gift that they've given us. And so us bringing you support through Councillor Wiley's motion is really critical, and it really speaks to it. But one of the things that I want to ask you, because I know you must be thinking about this, and that is, in terms of that passionate energy and retired experience that you spoke to, there are approximately 120 businesses, licensed and non-licensed, in this community that are mostly arts-based. And so in doing that, I'm wondering if you are still thinking, like, having the Vault as this beautiful collective and place where you can coordinate all of this, but are you still thinking about a museum and a maker space?
Can Rhonda speak?
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, please go ahead.
You might want to introduce yourself so people watching will know.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rhonda Stockwell. I'm the president of the Western District Historical Society. We've been in operation since 2014, and that was our dream, to eventually be able to open a museum in Strathmore. But to this date, we haven't been able to accomplish this. So when Ron and Kelly first they approached the Wheatland Society of Arts, and then Brandy brought me on with the Historical Society, we thought this would be a great opportunity to get a little bit of exposure in this beautiful building. As far as the museum, we do not know what will happen in that regards, okay? Of course, it all takes money and manpower. So right now, it's in discussions, but I can't really expand on that.
So theoretically, if there was a space in the downtown that was a museum, visitor information, maker space for arts and culture, do you think that there would be a possibility that the Vault Collective, Community Collective, would look at also coordinating that process? Absolutely. That that would be the center, and it would sort of fan out from that?
Well, I think we already have established that with the Vault, okay?
Right.
But we got to make sure we're able to display all the beautiful local artists and artisans. So we do have dedicated cabinets that display. In fact, you must go in and see Lynn Fair's Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee. She got interviewed with Strathmore Now and the Strathmore Times today. You must drop in and check that out because it's amazing what this lady has on.
And I also just want to say that although you don't have a museum proper, you have a contextual museum in this community that the Western District Historic Society has really been amazing because it's in several spaces.
Right,
And in your walking tour.
Yeah.
Which is a remarkable accomplishment. And I just, in my view, supporting this project means making it very big into the future to really bring in that safety net for arts and culture through this community. You know, that I know that it sounds supercilious to say, you know, to compare that, you know, people don't go to Paris to see the sewers. You know, I want people to come to Strathmore to see this best kept secret, this beautiful little town. And I really appreciate what you have brought to that. I certainly support Councillor Wiley's motion, and I support much, much beyond it. And I think that our community is poised to do much more for arts and culture. And as you've so clearly pointed out, you haven't had your share. And in that community survey, arts and culture were in the top 7. And so, yes, you certainly were. And so you have not received the recognition you so richly deserve. But I really appreciate you coming and what you've accomplished. It's really remarkable.
I would just like to end with one thing. The people in this room are passionate about arts and culture. So we would love to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, love to go down that rabbit hole. So thank you, Councillor Wiley and Councillor Peterson. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Wagner.
Yes, just a couple of things here. Again, thank you for the presentation. That was, to me, that was eye-opening and very informative. Some of the things that you said that I liked about that, local artists. Again, other than Brent talking about his daughter and his mom, I don't know any local artists, but I do like the fact that things are, you're looking local here. Another thing that a lot of us campaigned on was the downtown revitalization. This is a good avenue, a good venue for that. And it would be nice, excuse me, it'd be nice to see the downtown fill up a little bit more. And then finally, you mentioned through your social media accounts and that you are going to be getting this out here. Tourism. We had a presentation for agro-tourism here a while ago, which hopefully is going to go ahead. Artistic, another reason for people to come to Strathmore as a tourist. We don't have the dinosaurs like Drumheller do, but if we can get some form of tourism here, it's going to help out all the local businesses in town. So again, thank you for your presentation, and I will be supporting this motion as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wagner. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for all the information that you provided. You've raised the bar for delegations for sure, so thank you very much. And yeah, I certainly support this as well, and I look forward to seeing what we can do together.
Good. Thank you so much. We're very gracious.
And with no further comments, all in favor of that motion? Great, thank you. All right, have a good day. All right, and with that, we will move on to our next delegation, which is Waste Management of Canada, soon to be known as WM.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and councillors. Just so, for those of you who do not know, I've got with me tonight Chris and Cody. Chris is business development based in Calgary, and Cody, of course, is operations based here in Strathmore. So I will welcome them up and they can give their presentation.
All right, thanks, Ethan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Montgomery. Good evening, members of council and administration. Thanks for having us. I'm Chris, this is Cody, and we're looking forward to chatting with you about, and sorry, I'm just going to navigate here. Did that come up? There you go. Perfect. Looking forward to chatting with you about WM's new name, talk about our compost facility successes. We'll talk about compost program for residents. We'll talk about recycling in today's markets, waste collection, and WM in the community. So firstly, a little bit about our name change. In February of this year, we changed our name from Waste Management to simply WM. And that might sound like a small adjustment, but for us as a company, it's actually a pretty big shift. And it's another big step forward in our journey towards our purpose-driven brand of always striving for a more sustainable tomorrow. So we'll always be managing waste. It'll be a core part of our business forever. It's simply a part of what we do. But more and more, we're increasingly focused on investing in and developing the sustainability side of our service offerings. So services like recycling, renewable natural gas projects are a big focus for us in this year and coming years, and of course, organics.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody. I'm Cody Huxhead with Waste Management. Today, I'd like to share some successes with the town of Strathmore's organics program. Back in 2021, we had 1,261 metric tons, which equates to 26% of a diversion rate. With the residential recycling, that brings it to 44% of the waste stream. Maybe I'll go to the next one here, Chris. Here's a picture of our compost facility, the screening operation here in Strathmore. We've made available between May and October to residents up to 40 liters. They can come down to the town office, get a tag, and we have free compost that we give to residents. So this is just a quick picture and a shot of our screening operation.
Do you mind if I ask a question? So
Yes.
Beyond that 40 liters, can town residents purchase compost from you directly?
Directly, no, at this time.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's what we're using.
Here's a listing of all of the recyclable materials that are accepted at the recycling facility. We've actually listed them in the manner in which they're delivered, so they're kind of source separated by those categories. It's an easy way to really understand like what are the materials that we're managing and then ultimately marketing. Waste Management's recycled marketing team, as well as our service provider in Calgary, collaborate together on focusing on accessing suitable markets for each of these commodities, each of these products, making sure that those materials are managed responsibly, and then making sure that we're focused on effective movement of those materials. So in other words, they're not stockpiling and that those materials are managed all the way through to their end use. In terms of demand for recycling in the markets, our outlook is stability. The demand has actually been pretty high for certain grades of plastics, number 1s, 2s, 4s, and 5s, and then less so on some of the other grades of plastics. The demand is, again, steady, pretty consistent, and growing domestically over the last couple of years as there's been a number of initiatives globally that have really influenced the movement of recyclables, across North America and less so internationally. At this time, we don't see anything that suggests, WM and the town should be talking about any potential program changes. Won't see anything that would indicate that there's the need to do that now. But that said, we're always open to discussing ideas and further exploring potential alternatives.
And then I'll bring up here, so this is a shot into our recycle facility. I think most of you guys have all been there. We're going to talk about extra bags. Tags available at the town of Strathmore, $3.37 per bag, and you put it out with your normal waste collection. And last year, I think we collected close to 1,000 extra bags. And then I just want to kind of share kind of the community in WM. Here we got a few pictures. Obviously, COVID slowed us down with more of the tours with the schools. So here's just showing the driver doing truck safety and roadway safety with lots of students and kids. We're now back offering the tours. So if you know anybody or any of the schools looking to do that now after COVID, we'd be more than happy to take people around and show them our process. And WM, Delisa Hoglander, so Strathmore's, you've probably seen her at the recycle facility. She was Waste Management Canada's Operator of the Year in 2021, so we hold that high here in Strathmore, so I just wanted to share that. And then the fourth picture, is just setting up, showing sponsorship of our of the community events, and that one was specifically with the rodeo, which we'll be sponsoring again this year. So.
We'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Wiley.
Did I hear that correctly? 44% of waste now, including organic and recycling, has been diverted from the landfills?
Yes, in Strathmore.
That's outstanding. We were just talking about this and my staff at school today. And we were talking about how there's no demand for stretchy plastic, right? And it's impossible. And then we were complaining about, or apparently some provincial governments are starting to create incentives for plastic recycling companies to come in by giving tax breaks and things like that. And I was thinking out loud, and I wondered, is there any way for a municipal government to help encourage or to create demand, incentivizing anything, like tax breaks or anything, to create demand for these companies to come in and produce things with that recycled plastic material? I don't expect you to have an answer tonight, but it would be sure interesting to hear a presentation on, is there any way for a local or municipal government to help incentivize that demand for what the product essentially that you sell?
Let us take that one away. It's an intriguing question for sure. Let's take that one away, please.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. My eyes also widened at the 44% diversion rate, and what I'm curious is, does that number include the private collection that you do around town, so total pickups around town, or just?
This is just residential.
So residential only at the recycle facility down, your recycle facility, not when you come around to my house on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, it's Wednesday.
So we did keep the town's data, separate, but you're right. If you add in the subscription recycling services we provide around town, that number goes up.
Thank you.
Interesting. Go ahead, Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. I know I ask you this every time for like a gazillion years, but people will always come back and ask council, why don't we recycle glass? And so as my fellow councillor would say, the people at home will always ask that question.
Well, there's more markets. Like that's one of the ones we're always trying to find more markets for everything. That's one of the ones that is a challenge. So it's one we're digging into.
So there's just no market. That's the bottom line.
There is markets, and those are. I can update you on those further.
Okay.
Yeah, they often involve a fair amount of transportation, so it becomes a question of practicality and economics. But let us take that one away and take another look at it. We're always trying to identify, is there something new? Is there a new opportunity on the horizon? So let's take that one away.
Great, thank you. Is there any other questions? No. All right. I guess thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to the consent agenda, which I think is new territory for us. So I will entertain a motion if somebody wants to make one regarding the consent agenda.
Your Worship, I would move the consent agenda. The council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion: 7.1, 10.11, 10.1.2, 10.1.3, 11.1, and 11.2, that these be added to the consent agenda, Your Worship.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments about that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Great. All right, we will move on to RCMP, 8.1 RCMP.
Council.
Sorry, what?
Is this a new one?
Well, that was included in the...
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Please approach. Go ahead. Welcome, Staff Sergeant.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you tonight to give you an update on our policing priorities, progress throughout the year. And tonight we'll be speaking about priorities going into this next fiscal year. For this presentation, all of my comments will be made through the CAO to the chair and the rest of council for ease of reference and context. For an update on our policing priorities for this year, just to comment on quarter four. So we wrapped up our last fiscal year as of March 31st, so I'm happy to appear before you to provide you an update with how we did throughout the year and to let you know about some of the things that we're doing in our community. With respect to our goal of reducing property crimes, that being theft of motor vehicles, theft from motor vehicles, and break and enters, we have a number of programs that remain in effect. Our habitual offender program has been moving steadily forward. This last quarter, we monitored 14 offenders. I can tell you out of our checks, we conducted 112 dedicated documented checks on these offenders, which resulted in 2 of them moving out of our community. I don't know why, but they decided they wanted to move on. And 9 arrests, as well as recovery of stolen property during that period of time. And we were able to execute warrants for arrest during these dedicated checks. Again, we're monitoring these offenders who enter our program, again, just to ensure that they're maintaining a law-abiding lifestyle within our community and not causing our residents any trouble. Our Persons of Interest program remains in effect. These are people who we're become aware of who may not necessarily be on court-ordered conditions, but do have a history that, again, we're interested in ensuring that they maintain a law-abiding lifestyle and don't slide back into their historical norms. That program is being led by our General Investigation Section, which involves or is comprised of 2 members that are municipal members provided to us graciously by the town of Strathmore, and 1 rural resource that I've added into that unit as a matter of reciprocity and moving into our crime reduction and management strategies throughout our general area. And as I explained before in prior meetings, that goal is to ensure that we're dealing with threats in our regional area that also affect Strathmore. So we don't just stop at the town limits. We want to make sure that, in an equitable way between our rural resources and municipal resources, that we're dealing with regional issues that affect crime, specifically our residents within Strathmore and our surrounding communities. Our security screw program is up and running. You can find them at 5 locations, including 3 dealerships in town, as well as the detachment and the fire hall. I've actually had to go by one of the dealerships to top them up, so they've been moving steadily, and people seem to be very interested. So that is one program that we are happy to say is up and running. It's been advertised, and again, for those in our community who may not be aware, it's a free security fastener that will be installed on your vehicle, so that way your license plate doesn't get stolen. Just slightly referring to that, where people wonder if it is an issue in Strathmore, I can tell you, as provided with our April calendar year date with April crime stats, I can tell you that 10 of the thefts that have occurred this calendar year so far involved stolen license plates. So again, it is something that we want to be addressing in our community, and just something else we could do to help protect our residents. Our theft prevention program remains under development. So as you can see through subsequent reports, starting this last fiscal year, we've been slowly ramping up these programs and building upon them as we get them up and established. So we're looking at progressive growth with our crime prevention and crime reduction programs. We're still working on it. We're looking for a way that we can roll this out and manage it with volunteers within the community. Operation Cold Start was rolled out that occurred between the dates of January 31st and February 6th of this year. The program involved just keeping an eye on vehicles just to check and see if they were running unattended or unlocked and with vehicles in them, of course, keys in them, of course. As you can see, that we did find 61 vehicles during that period of time, and that's just within the town of Strathmore, that were running with keys in them and unlocked. There are 57 vehicles found idling but locked, which is good. That's what we're looking for, and they enable us to have 56 interactions with owners. So when a vehicle was found, we tried to find the owner and communicate with them, educate them on the risks associated with leaving your vehicle unattended and unlocked and running, especially in the cold winter months. Our area offenders are on the hunt, trick-or-treating, if you will, for vehicles that are running that are left unlocked, and it just makes it a crime of opportunity for vehicles to get stolen in our community. So we're trying to educate the public as best as we can, and then that feeds into our theft prevention program, and ultimately what we're trying to roll out is to provide that level of education. Typically, if vehicles are locked, secured, and there's no valuables present, you're not going to face any issues, and persons who are maybe eyeing up items of value will simply just move on.
May I ask a question? So we were just talking to WM about the market. What is the market for a stolen vehicle? Or once they steal my vehicle, is it then sold overseas? Is that what's happening, or is it a big picture, or are they just joyriding my vehicle around town?
Well, typically with stolen vehicles, they're stolen to enable offenders to commit further crimes, and that's where we see license plate theft happening, where perhaps, for example, if you have a white F-150 late 2000s model, they may be looking for another one. that's parked legal on the street, they'll steal a license plate, put that on their vehicle so they can remain undetected for a period of time to commit further crimes. Sometimes vehicles can be parted out, and we've dismantled chop shops within the Rockview County area of our detachment area with assistance of our General Investigation Section early this year in the calendar year, where vehicles will be parted out or revinned and resold. High-value vehicles, such as your high-value imports or vehicles that are, of course, of high value, may be taken to a location where they can be shipped overseas and resold overseas. So that's where we see more of the high-value vehicles being sold. It's not to say that perhaps some standard vehicle makes may not be popular in certain areas of the world, but that does take a little more sophistication. Typically what we're seeing around here is vehicles being stolen, again, to be either revinned or just used to commit other crimes.
So when this vehicle goes missing, it's running with keys in it, you may never see it again.
Possibly. I can say the majority of vehicles that we see stolen in the Strathmore area are typically recovered in and around Calgary. So depending on the state of the vehicle when it's found, it may need some repair. Sometimes it may not be repairable, and at times, depending on the crimes committed, it could be burned. So we do have a high level of vehicle recovery of vehicles that are stolen in our area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. If you have a question.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't ignoring anyone. So that leads through to our crime prevention through environmental design. Now, these are ways that we can try to educate our residents on how to make their properties or their valuables unattractive to would-be property offenders, and it's just a simple way to protect yourselves and your property. Using vehicles, for instance, if you don't have any valuables in them and they're locked, the offenders simply move along. Really, the philosophies, if you simplify it as much as you can, is minimize the opportunity for items to be stolen, the opportunity being attractiveness, and increase the likelihood of getting caught. So if you have a dark or dimly lit property, maybe there's items that are attractive, less likelihood of getting caught versus, motion sensors and something you would see out of a sci-fi film and, drones that pop up and catch you, right? So if they knew that was in place, there's a high likelihood of getting caught, probably not going to be using that area or looking to commit crimes in those areas. To some extent, with our crime prevention and reduction strategies, overall, that's what we're trying to establish as a reputation for this area, is that this is a safe area, safe community. Our members are out, they're present, and we want the reputation that if you come here to do wrong or commit crimes, that you may and will be caught. So that's the reputation that we're looking for to make this area in our Strathmore detachment area the safest in the southern Alberta, and that's one goal that I have. I've given you some property crime comparisons for Q4 and year end. As far as our crime reduction strategies were concerned, I set out, and maybe perhaps an overly ambitious goal, but to reduce our crimes in these targeted areas by another 5% over the last year. We've seen a steady decrease of crimes in these areas over the last 5 years. And as anticipated, we're seeing, just based on the changes in economy and how our public health restrictions are loosening a bit, we do anticipate that there'd be some elevated crime. And what we did see is that over this last calendar year, we had an increase of theft from motor vehicles. However, we did achieve our crime reduction goals with theft from motor vehicles and break-in enters in the fiscal year, as you see in front of you. And what I've done is I've given you a visual of what our 5 calendar year averages are for crime levels in these areas. And despite the slight increase with theft of motor vehicles over the 5-year average, we still had a 52% reduction over that period of time. So I guess it's more of a matter of finding a suitable baseline to measure what do we consider success in these areas. We still saw reductions in 2 out of 3 areas. I do consider that as a success, but going into the next fiscal year, we'll be looking for more of a baseline to make sure that we're not setting our goals too overly ambitiously high. And not that I disagree, I believe in setting the bar high because you have something to aspire to, but I want to make sure that we're reporting accurately on the effectiveness of our programs. And as you can see, the numbers, even just looking at the graphs, they're pretty low. So when you're dealing with low numbers, an increase of 2 to 3 might represent 65% or 66% type of increase, depending on what area you're looking at. So it's a matter of making sure that we're clear with how we're reporting our numbers and remaining realistic with what our goals are. Overall, I consider our goals in our property crime reduction areas a success for the town of Strathmore. Moving on to traffic safety, I've given you our activities over the quarter with respect to our enforcement activities, which include regular enforcement, and I've given you the year-to-date tallies as far as our detachment's regular street enforcement is concerned. We still rolled out our check stop program, and as you can see, a quick visual there of Highway 1 west of West Mountain Drive early in January, just to see our members out there working. For the year, we did a total of 29 documented check stops, which resulted in about 2,205 vehicles being checked through that period of time. I do expect those numbers to climb into this next fiscal year because we implemented those programs sort of midway through the year when I arrived, and we started ramping them up quite a bit, so we'll see some steady progress and growth in those programs. More visibility in the community and certainly a higher level of our ability to detect impaired drivers. With our bar walk program, there's a number of reasons why we will walk through our bars, again, to prevent and to deter illicit activity, but also to encourage people who are there to make the appropriate plans as far as how they're going to get home. We can see that there were 61 documented bar walks for this quarter for a total of 112 for the year. We're going to see more presence in our licensed establishments, especially because we're seeing loosened restrictions, more return to normal with our operating hours. And again, our goal is to make sure that our streets are safe. When we look at our collision comparisons this quarter as compared to that last, we're pretty close with our numbers. They fluctuate slightly, but we're still seeing overall a downward trend that you notice occurring starting in September and October of this fiscal year. So while we were a little bit higher in our injury collisions and overall collisions, I can see that, as represented by our graphs here, that we had a bit of a return to normal starting in September, October of this year. So while elevated again, perhaps again, maybe a little overly ambitious with where our goals are, our roads are safe when you take a look at the low numbers of collisions that we're seeing. And the two lines on the graph that you see are our injury collisions. They're less than 5 going throughout the year. So anywhere between 1 to 5, which is very, very low. And that's on a monthly basis.
I have a question too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have any cameras or are our lights set to eliminate the semis that do not slow down when they're coming through Strathmore?
So are you speaking about red light cameras or
like
speed cameras?
radar, like the one right on 68th?
We don't have any here in the town of Strathmore, and I think that's something that if we were to make a move that way, that we would have to do some careful study to determine what effect, if any, does it have on the behavior, because ultimately we want to correct the behavior, not have someone pay a ticket and continue the behavior, because it's cheaper to pay a ticket rather than obey the rules of the road unless you're being stopped by an enforcement officer where there's stiffer penalties involved.
So, and could our lights not be synced so that they can't do a continuous right through? Or are they synced so they can't do a straight through Strathmore?
I'm sure anything is possible if you put enough smart people in a room. I'm not one of them, to be honest. I'd have to refer to perhaps Mr. Dugdale here on that, or perhaps someone else at the town that could speak to that. But I'm sure it's possible, and I'm probably not the subject matter expert in that field.
Please, thank you.
Through the chair, I think that would be something we'd have to look to Alberta Transportation to see if they'd be supportive of, because they do control the Trans-Canada Highway through town. But we could check with them and get back to you.
Go ahead, Councillor Wagner.
Okay, thank you for your thanks for your presentation. Kind of along the lines of what Councillor Metzner talked about, I've had a few people ask me about that. There's some, like I say, some of the big semis are coming through these stop signs, the red lights, and the speed that they're going through town. There's no way that if the light changes, there's no way that they're going to stop. I was never a big fan of the red light cameras. I would prefer to see real life enforcement there. That gives them a little bit of I don't know, maybe a little more harsher punishment to it. But again, I just thank you, Councillor Metzner, for that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I definitely don't I believe in what's going on, but I've talked to several people over the last couple of months, and I've heard it from people that they've been pulled over. And I'm not sure if it's by Rcmp or if it's by the sheriffs and that, but they have all been asked to blow into a breathalyzer. Is that becoming more and more common? Just like my son-in-law's dad, the lights were out on his car, but they made him blow.
So there was new revisions with the federal legislation, I believe it was Bill C-75, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 years ago, which enabled police officers to roll out the mandatory alcohol screening program. And that was changes in the legislation that made it mandatory for all motorists, regardless of level of sobriety, to submit to a sample that's being obtained by whether it's an Rcmp member or now the sheriffs are now involved in that program. So it's a matter that, through the COVID period of time, it was a discretionary measure that members were taking to maximize their safety, because when you provide a sample through a roadside screening device, you're actually expelling air. So there may have been some inconsistent use, but it is something that's been rolled out. I think generally the message is with that is if a person isn't consuming liquor and driving while under the influence, they've got nothing to worry about. It's a very quick test. The message to be sent is that you could be subject to these tests at any time during the day, not just during those witching hours in the later evening where people may be returning from licensed establishments. What that does is it creates a conversation piece. For example, if a school teacher is tested on their way to school, they tell all the other teachers that I got tested at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning on the way in. Then again, it helps educate the public and inform the public that perhaps it's not a risk that they should be willing to take. Now, to some, there are varying opinions and views on the program itself, whether it be positive or negative. So to some, it's inconvenience. To some people are very willing to provide a sample because they're happy to provide one just to show that they're at zero. But it is a program that not only our detachment utilizes, but it's widely utilized across the province and across the country because of that change in legislation.
No, and I appreciate the answer. And like I say, I actually agree with it. It's periodically after work, we'll go out for a beer. I've switched that up to now a club soda just for that simple fact. So it's made me really cognizant of what's going on, and I think it's great. And you're right. If you're sober, you have nothing to fear. Thank you.
And so again, some consumption's okay. I mean, it's summer months, it's warm days, but again, it's a matter of being within moderation with that as well. And I've heard, when it's roadside myself, I've only had 2. Well, sometimes I've had to ask how big were those 2, right? But again, it's just a matter of safety. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to ask a follow-up, I guess. So sorry, you're saying that now it's mandatory, so every time somebody gets pulled over now, that will be applied?
It's if the officer makes the request, then yes, the person is required to submit to a mandatory alcohol screening test. So it may not be mandatory that the officer is required to on every single stop, but that is, I guess, another tool, if you will, to maximize road safety. Depending what the member has going on during the day, maybe they see a basic traffic infraction, but they don't have time, or they don't see anything that causes them alarm to do it at that point in time, versus a member who may be out doing dedicated traffic patrols, and that is what they're doing for that evening. They will test everyone.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Peterson, go ahead.
Thank you. I really want to thank you for your sacrifice and your care for our community. I really appreciate it. You've stood in this council chambers lots of times educating us on what you reference in your report on the community policing model. And I know that you said that the whole thing about community policing is emphasizing a proactive strategy, and you hammered that home in this room, and that you do it in a thoughtful, mindful, systemic way. And so I see that. We see evidence of it in everything that you've brought before us and everything you've done. You've upped the game, and really appreciative of that. One of the things that I've been thinking about in the last days since the school shooting in Uvalde, and of course, it's not the flavor of the month, but it is happening every month, and we know that we're not immune. And one of the things that we've often talked about, and that I often discussed with a former councillor and former Rcmp member, Bob Sobel, was the whole idea of working with the schools and with the Rcmp and with SWAT and youth justice around restorative practice in our schools, and looking for an opportunity to bring not restorative justice, but the teaching of restorative practice as a model to make young people aware of how they can exercise good citizenship in terms of community. And restorative practice has shown itself to be a really, really excellent model in bringing that in. And I know you're not prepared to talk about it tonight, and I didn't bring it forward, but at some future time, if you were ever to, I know you're very familiar with the model, but at some future time, if you ever come up with an idea of how we could initiate that in a fundamental way. And I don't know if it would come from the private sector or if it would come from a more definitive service provision, but I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so carrying forward, there is the third priority that we have to report on, as you can see, and I can be brief with it. It is our community engagement portion, as you allude to. You can see some graphics there where our members have been involved in the schools, participating with our youth and participating in their classes, as well as our attendance at community events that I've laid out there for you as well, as far as our activities in the quarter. Again, our community liaison program is still active to maintain those lines of communication with the community. And again, it's been fairly well received, including our school liaison program, where our members are in the schools more often, to normalize our presence there and to, again, break down those barriers where people don't feel that they need to be anxious around police. It's not, we want to get over that old adage that you don't talk to police unless you're in trouble. That's not the case. We're regular people too, and that's what we're trying to instill in our youth, to establish those lines of communication and be approachable by the public. A couple of areas that we have coming off the ground here with our other initiatives, and we're referencing to our youth diversion program, so both for our youth and Indigenous youth diversion program. It is active within our detachment now. It is an option that our members have to consider when dealing with youth, especially with respect to minor first-time offenses such as property crimes, where rather than entering the criminal justice system, or quite often that may not be the most suitable solution, and it doesn't rectify the behavior, where it gives a young person who meets our criteria. Of course, that's admission of wrongdoing, expression of legitimate remorse, willingness to make recompense and participate in the program, and again, making sure that the victim of the crime is supportive and consents, but it gives them an opportunity to make recompense for what they've done. I'm not sure on everyone's upbringing, but I can tell you myself personally is that if I did wrong, I did a lot of chores. And I don't know if you know how impossible of a task it is to clean cow manure out of a pasture. All of it. So I sure minded my P's and Q's, knowing that if that's what I had to do when I did wrong, I sure minded my P's and Q's. So to put it more of like a home type example, that's really the goal that we're getting at, is that it gives a person a chance to make recompense. You get to see what the effect was of the crime itself, and it gives the person who's a victim, whether they want to participate or not, to express how they felt and how the person's behavior affected them. But it also serves as a bit of a deterrent. And I've rolled this out on many other posts that I've been at, where it may be shoveling sidewalks for community elders, it may be picking garbage, it could be chopping wood. And we've been happy, depending on our availability resources, to help monitor that. The town administration graciously is in support of this program and is working with us to support that should we have a candidate to help monitor their activities, helping to beautify our community, if you will. So if it's a matter of picking weeds, pulling garbage, helping to clean up graffiti, that's something that is a good way to make recompense to support our community being a community-based approach. Something quick to make reference to, our Rcmp Mobile App is available at the locations that are in the report. I've downloaded it on my phone. It's a great way to take a look at our crime mapping, which will show you Strathmore, where we plot crimes that are occurring in the community on a map. You can see where that is, and it's updated live. Our media releases are populated through there, as well as information on our Alberta Rcmp crime prevention and crime reduction program. So if you have a chance, check it out. I encourage you to do so. It's there, and it's very easy to use. Last, our Watch Clerk program still remains in effect, and again, as I've been here before, it does produce a valuable service to our detachment. I can tell you right now that we're moving towards fully filling the positions at 4 with that additional rural resource that I added to the pool. However, we have one leaving, so we have a person who's been hired to fill a vacancy, and we have another in line to fill one that's a vacancy created by one of our staff that's leaving. So again, we're in close communication with our other funding partners, with support of our town administration, who's been very helpful with moving this program forward, with the hopes of eventually normalizing these positions, but offering multi-year plans and enhanced benefits to retain our valuable staff that we train in these positions and continue the support that they provide to our members by helping them, increasing the time they can spend on the street, both in the town of Strathmore and our rural areas within Wheatland County and Rocky View County. Lastly, I've got some numbers here with respect to our calls for service. You can see that we're pretty well close to where we were last year, coming to the last half of the year. And again, for our traffic calls for service separated for you as well. That is the summary of our quarter 4 and year-end report for you. And again, if there's any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Go ahead, Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Staff Sergeant, for coming to talk to us, especially tonight. I know you must be incredibly busy right now. I just have one follow-up question, and it's regarding the speed of large vehicles going down Highway 1. And this is maybe a bit of a personal observation, but I notice there's usually an Rcmp member parked along the road, maybe near that substation. I don't know, it might be there, catching vehicles as they are leaving town. Now, I've had the experience of having a truck honk at me and honk the horn as he sped through 2 red lights in town. So I know that this is an ongoing issue. They're not, some aren't even trying. So my question is, why are we catching them on the east side of town as they leave, and not maybe more on the, and maybe it's because I'm not on the west side as much as the east side, but not more on the west side as they're coming in?
Thank you for the question. That may be part of it, depending on where your usual path of travel is throughout the day. I'm aware there's a popular spot where enforcement does take place. As part of our overall traffic safety reduction program, I do have plans in the works partnering with commercial vehicle enforcement and Alberta sheriffs. As far as I'm aware, there will be some of them relocating to the weigh scales on Highway 1. I've worked with them before, and I'm looking at enhancing our road safety programs in partnership with them. Our commercial vehicle enforcement fellows are very well versed in anything that could be right or wrong with a commercial vehicle, and I'm looking to have them partner with us within the town of Strathmore to help reduce not only the speed issues, but also compliance with safety as well.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson, did you want to ask anything? Okay. I have a couple questions. So your comment about like the being pulled over and breathalyzed in the morning made me think about like what is the process if somebody like was using mouthwash, let's say, and they get pulled over and tested?
If it's simply just mouth alcohol, the member will ask, have you had anything to drink in the last 15 minutes? Because that's roughly how long it takes for any kind of mouth alcohol to dissipate. Okay. In fact, in our training, you swish, don't drink, but you have a swish of whether it's spirits or malt liquor to demonstrate how long it takes. And you give a sample on the roadside screening device at 5, 10, 15 minutes. And by the time you hit 15 minutes, you're not registering anymore. So if it's simply just mouth alcohol, that will dissipate within 15 minutes. If somebody admits to having consumed liquor or mouthwash, we'll wait 15 minutes and the sample's provided. If there is truly no alcohol within your circulatory, your blood system, it's not going to be produced with the breath that you exhale after 15 minutes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you. My next question has to do with like intersection protocol with crosswalks. I was under the impression that it's illegal or it contravenes the traffic law to for a vehicle to enter into, to basically cross over a crosswalk while there's people in the crosswalk, even if they're in like the far lane or whatever. Could you clarify for people? Because I see it happening quite a bit.
Well, it's a matter of stopping at the stop line that's itself, so whether it's controlled intersection, uncontrolled, whether it's a marked crosswalk or not. If it's a pedestrian crossing, you're supposed to stop, depending on the intersection, well ahead of that crossing. Now, if there are no pedestrians present, you can creep forward if you're looking to check before you enter into the traffic, because there are some intersections where you can't clearly see, and that's permissible. But it's dependent on the situation itself. If somebody couldn't manage to brake fully, or their foot slipped off the brake and they end up coming to a complete stop partially into the crosswalk, those are facts that are determined by the member who may observe that infraction. But yes, it is not lawful to stop or be parked or be obstructing a crosswalk, especially when pedestrians are present. So okay. Hopefully it answers your question, but it is case by case. Again, we're not very 100% rigid as that you're 3 centimeters into the crosswalk, you're done, haha, evil laugh. But sorry for the.
Yeah, I don't mean so much like because I walk around with my kids quite a bit, and we'll be on the far lane, and then somebody will just drive through while we're still on the road, in the crosswalk. And I was under the impression that was not lawful.
It isn't. So if it's an open streetway, you're supposed to wait for the pedestrians to reach the next sidewalk. Okay. If there's a boulevard, you can't proceed at least until they pass beyond the boulevard. Okay. So again, if there's any issues that you witness, again, observe, record, report. If you see a license plate description of a vehicle, you can call. We can investigate the matter and an infraction can be issued. What that means, though, later down the road is if the person objects or decides to plead not guilty, then we just need people who report traffic offenses to attend court and attest to what they saw.
Okay, great. Thank you. And my last question just has to do with your comment about working. So administration, they will let some offenders work off their fines or their punishment, is what you're saying? And so that's what our administration is doing currently?
We haven't had a candidate yet, but to clarify, it's not a matter of paying off a fine, it's a matter of making recompense for harm. So let's just say if, in the example where you spray paint someone's fence, the person's willing, based on the circumstances, if it was the first time that the person was, youth was involved in a crime such as graffiti, then rather than going through the criminal court system, which may not correct the behavior, in fact, it may make it worse, or they may not be a suitable outcome in that, we've changed the behavior to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is an opportunity to do so. With the support, perhaps maybe the person may not want them to wash the graffiti off the fence, but maybe they want something else done instead as far as recompense. So where we're partnering with our administration is that we're giving them something to do, and we're willing to monitor them to make sure they put in enough hours to satisfy the youth making recompense for what they've done. So it's giving them a second chance. But again, you need to meet the criteria as I've laid out. If a person's not remorseful, or if they don't want to participate, this is not the first time, or the victim in particular doesn't agree and does want this person or this youth to go through the criminal court system, then we need to have those criteria met before we can do that. We can't ignore the rights of victims, and we can't force somebody through the program if they're not remorseful, they don't admit what they did, and they're not willing to participate. They're just simply not a candidate at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for answering my questions. And if there's no further questions, yeah, thank you very much for your presentation or for the information.
Okay. I think there is a resolution that may be before council with respect to, and I'm not sure who's most appropriate to bring that forward, if it's myself or perhaps.
Councillor Peterson, would you like to?
Your Worship, I would move that council approve the 2022-2023 RCMP policing priorities for the town of Strathmore.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments about that? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to the Smart Start Economic Development Initiative, and I believe Mr. Person's coming.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Council. The report tonight is a brief report, and I just wanted to start off with a thank you to Council for supporting the trade show that took place this weekend. The Chamber delivered a really impressive new event for the community, and it really highlights local businesses. That's one of the things that Smart Start is about here. It's an entrepreneurship initiative, and like major investments like last week's phytoorganics announcement are huge wins for the community, but grassroots entrepreneurship provides diversity and innovation for the local economy as well. So Smart Start is a program that was initiated in 2012 in Cochrane. It was a partnership between the community and Community Futures. It's in the decades since then, it's actually yielded really impressive results. That's one of the reasons why we felt that this was a good fit for Strathmore. Not only is that a community that's close enough to us that we feel that we can mirror those same sorts of results, but it's also it has a similar economic profile to Strathmore in that Strathmore has about 500 entrepreneurs, including about 200 home-based businesses. So by working with a program that has a demonstrated history of success, we feel that there's a good chance that we can mirror that success as well. It's also a really great program because it doesn't require a lot of administrative oversight from town staff. So this is something where, because they've got their own model, they've got all their templates, they've got everything that's already created, this is an opportunity for us to plug into an existing team that can really hit the ground running. So we would still be responsible for a lot of the promotion, for referring businesses to it, and conducting some regular check-ins with Community Futures and the Smart Start staff to make sure that they're on track. But really, this is a very cost-effective and staff time effective way to address a entrepreneurship gap in our economic development toolbox. So what we are asking today is, sorry, actually one other point is just that this was something that was budgeted in the 2022 budget. So this is something that we had planned for. Council had approved that part of the budget, but now that we have the agreement here, we're just asking for Council's authorization for the CAO to sign an agreement with Community Futures Centre West to commence the Smart Start Entrepreneurship Training Program. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Is there any questions from anybody?
The only question I had, Jeff, was I'm referencing page 116 and 165, or page 11 and 12, or particularly Schedule B, page 12. So the way you've scaled it, do you think, I guess I'm concerned that we may not have enough funding in this. So if we see after year one, and we've spent the $7,500, and I like the fact that you've scaled it, I think it's smart. But if we find that it's so successful, or that we have a lot of people not able to enter, can we come back in year two and take a look at redoing year one in the same way and scale it again?
Through the chair, Councillor, that's absolutely a really great point. The numbers that came in Schedule B were numbers that were recommended by Smart Start. So this is, they've since Cochrane, they've actually rolled it out in several other communities as well. So they base this off of what they feel is an appropriate uptake in the program. If there was if there was overwhelming demand, then that's something where we could bring that back as an amendment to the agreement.
The reason that I bring this up, I'm thinking about the initiatives that are being undertaken by the Agricultural Society, and if they, you know, in time, and probably in the near future, when they start scaling their events will be entrepreneurially based and brought into the community, and I can see a huge space for this. So if not probably not in the next year, but in the years to come, I can see just in that sector a huge escalation of need for this resource. But I really appreciate it. I like how tight it is, and thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Jeff? Go ahead, Councillor Wiley.
I'm ready for the motion. I'll move that council authorize the CAO to sign an agreement with the Community Futures Centre West to commence the Smart Start Entrepreneur Training Program.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments about that motion?
I would just speak to the motion. I just want to thank our administration and your team that is going out and finding and researching these ideas, or at least entertaining when Smart Start comes to you guys. Especially ways to encourage small businesses, so thank you.
So I'm the council representative for the local Community Futures, and I spoke with the local executive director, and yeah, she had nothing but great things to say about this program, and it sounds like it'll be a really great opportunity for us. And so yeah, thank you very much for working to get this brought here. And with that, all in favor of Councillor Wiley's motion? Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, the 8.3 is 2022 capital budget update, and it's good news.
That's great, thank you. I'll start again.
Yes, please, thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brenda Huco, and I am with the town in the role of Finance Strategy Subcontractor. It is my pleasure tonight to bring forward the topic of the 2022 capital budget update. With that, I would like to share that this topic is a collaborative measure working with the directors and colleagues within the town to look at all the various capital projects and to make sure that if there are any changes that were previously presented back last fall, that we would then be bringing them as one package to council tonight. In the request for decision, you'll note that there was a couple of projects that were brought to council back in middle May 17th. We just wanted to include them in on this so that we have the full picture being presented to council. There are 9 different projects that have changes to them, and the changes are related to either supply chain issues or a delay in a project or over and under budget or other funding sources. Overall, it is a decrease of $672,000 to the capital budget, and that it's affecting the restricted surplus accounts, grants, the borrowing bylaw that's gone through first reading. This also follows Council's strategic vision by which it's looking at improving the town's position for debt. So that is done either by paying off debt sooner or taking less debt on. And then also supporting Council's vision on the reserve accounts so that we are starting to build them, so we're spending less dollars on reserve. That is my report. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Who would like to go first? Councillor Wiley, go ahead.
Sure, I have a question. So I'm on page 121 of 165. Updates to funding sources. Like, I'm new to this.
Okay.
So this is the money that's coming in to Strathmore that's not from residential, non-residential taxes, correct?
Correct. So grant dollars are provided. The different grant funds here, they're all provincial. There's no federal. So we've got the that's incorrect. We've got the Canada Community Building Fund, which was formerly known as the Federal Gas Tax Fund. That has an overall sum up, sum down. It comes out to a zero. Then we have some...
So can I even just stop you there? So how is it decided what money is coming in through this Canada Community Building Fund? So how does it go up and down? Like, it's not that they just say to us, we're going to write you a $20,000 check at the end of the year. How does it work?
So the grant programs, there's two different types of grant programs. One is called earmarked and the other one's called non-earmarked. So this is under the category of non-earmarked. The non-earmarked means we just get so many funds allocated to the town based on population, length of kilometers of road, and so on. So this Canada Community Building Fund, this would be one of the non-earmarked. So Strathmore gets so many dollars every year. The town would be informed. It's publicly available information. Now, specific to this report, when the capital budget was presented back in the fall, it would have identified a handful of projects to get funded by. As such, there's 3 of these that are either under budget, over budget, or change in scope. Overall, these changes end up netting to a difference of 0. So it doesn't affect the allocation that the federal government has provided to us. It's just really updating it so that we can make changes onto our capital budget and have that document shared with the public as well.
So it's not the kind of thing that you would know, carved in stone when you're making the 2022 budget.
We wouldn't know that there was changes to the capital projects when we were making the budget.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect the overall allocation. It just affects how we're spending it.
Okay, and then moving on to the next 3 grants, the Alberta Transportation and so on.
Yeah.
So did you want to, are those then earmarked? Is that what you were going to say?
So I don't have the back story on the Alberta Transportation Grant, but that is from the province. I'm not certain if either of the directors would like to speak to it.
Through the chair, I don't know if I would typically call that a grant, but it is money from Alberta Transportation, and Manager Wilson kind of identified that a couple of council meetings ago, that we were fortunate enough to get a contribution on that project from Alberta Transportation. So in effect, a grant.
But isn't that one a negative? Sorry, the Alberta Transportation Grant, when it's in parentheses, doesn't that mean it's money that we lost?
That's a fair point. It's not that it's a negative. It's that it was being funded by some other means, and that other means is now being replaced by these Alberta transportation dollars. So it's a negative to the other funding source.
I could probably help with that a bit. It took me a couple of years of being in local government too to figure out that positive cash flows are negatives and negative cash flows are positive. It's municipal accounting
we
versus...
might need some training on reading this document.
You have to retrain your brain. It took
The
me a couple
brackets
years.
are good.
Can be. Depends on what side of the, revenue versus expense.
Maybe in the fall, that could go in one of our training sessions is reading financial documents, because
Yes.
I won't ask any more questions just to reveal how ignorant I was.
No, and my apologies. I'll do better on the presentations going forward to appreciate. So the other grants, our other dollars are coming from the province, and they're just a reduction in the capital spend. So it means our capital budget is coming down. And that also means that funds may be available into the future from these different granting programs.
Right.
Then there's the 3 reserve accounts where some's up and some down. Overall, it's a net less spending from the reserve accounts. And then it's also a net less spending on the borrowing bylaw. Are there other questions?
Does that satisfy you, Councillor Wiley?
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just think that in response to Councillor Wiley's question about, what, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think you were asking about predictability. And there is none, really. There is none. And we've certainly seen that in MSI. I mean, we were fully expecting 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, to not see any MSI grant funding by this time. Federal gas tax, on the other hand, especially with what we're seeing in the economy, we were expecting or at least I was expecting a much different reality in terms of funding from the federal gas tax, and that has not come forward for a variety of reasons, including carbon taxation and so on, and lack of access to net zero and all the rest of it. But yeah, in answer to that, and it's astute questions. Your questions are really good, and they're not predictable, and it makes our life harder, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of it. So you see, like a 2022 budget, and whether it's a plus or a minus, you're like, well, how could they not know? But essentially, it's unpredictable. What I'd like in a future training session is to actually go through some of these maybe more common grants and just help us understand. I want to use the word predictable, but help us understand what typically the money is coming from and coming in and that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So maybe I can add that the allocation that the town gets, that allocation doesn't change. It's just if there was 100,000 allocated, just as an example of a number, and we were planning to spend 90,000 on a project, but now we're only going to spend 80,000. That means that difference of that 10,000 from 90 to 80 becomes available through that grant funded for another project into the future. So it's not that the allocation changed, it's that our spending of it changed. If that helped. Yeah, so that 10,000 savings is now open for another, or available for a future project. Thank you.
All right. Is there any further questions? New? Does somebody ever want to make a motion? Councillor Langmaid, please. Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to move that council approve administration's recommended updates as presented in table 1 with a total of $672,000 reduction of spending in the 2022 capital budget as presented in table number 2, utilizing the respective funding sources.
Well said. All right, is there any questions or comments about that motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. And thank you to administration for actually the agenda item. It was really great to see something like that, so thank you very much. Well, no, it's not even so much about the savings. It's just about like how they presented it and the transparency. So I really appreciate that. Okay, Now we will move on to the inserted item, which is 8.4, the proclamation of National Indigenous History Month. Who would like the honor? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that Council proclaim June 2022 is National Indigenous History Month in the town of Strathmore. Would you like me to read the proclamation?
I always like doing it, but I mean, go ahead. I think it's good to read them. So,
thank you. Whereas June is National Indigenous History Month, a time to honor the diversity of Indigenous peoples and recognize the historic and ongoing positive contributions of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. And whereas it is a time to listen and learn from Indigenous elders and knowledge keepers about the true history of this region. And whereas Indigenous peoples' history, traditions, culture, and contributions deserve to be recognized and honored, as does the strength and resiliency of Indigenous communities in managing language and culture despite the ongoing impacts of colonialism. And whereas the town of Strathmore is committed to working on restoring and repairing relationships with Indigenous communities and partners as we move forward on the shared path of reconciliation. Now, therefore, you, Jason Montgomery, Deputy Mayor of Strathmore, do hereby designate June 2022 as National Indigenous History Month in the town of Strathmore.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will call the question. All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Councillor Lamade. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fun stuff, the bylaws. So we'll start with the Municipal Library Board Bylaw number 22-14.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. Administration is bringing before you the Municipal Library Board Bylaw for your consideration. During the May 11th Committee of the Whole, there were some discussions around the bylaw and suggested changes, and those have been added to the bylaw. And so now we're bringing forward the bylaw for your consideration. So the background to this is the existing bylaw was largely outdated, so we wanted to bring it up to legislated and practice for what is actually occurring at the library. So a couple of the major changes are just changing the membership numbers and giving the freedom. So previously it was 7 members, but now we're leaving it open between 5 and 10 because situations change. And also just updating the financial reporting so that the library board is able to provide a financial report annually according to a way that is satisfactory to council. That gives them the freedom to have a report that is maybe a little bit cheaper to do, but still gives all the information that's necessary. And in addition to this, in the future, administration may be looking at some of the board municipality agreements for any kind of like administrative cooperation between the administration and the library board. And so at this time, administration is recommending that council give 3 readings of the library board bylaw, but of course that is up to council and whatever you would like. So I'm open to any questions, and yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll start off with if anyone has any questions for administration, go ahead, please, Councillor Peterson.
So my question is specifically to what you talked about with regards to the financial reporting. So the library for many, many years conducted a really expensive audit by hiring an auditor and then went to the level of review process. And so you're saying that they can stay with that level of review. You've simply outlined a process by which they need to do it, which wasn't there before. Is that correct?
Yeah, so previously it actually said that the town would provide the services. Now it's just saying that they will provide an annual report in a mode that is satisfactory to council. So if there was an issue in the future, you would be able to request a more thorough one, but then it is fine with the method that they're doing at the present.
So at this point, the library board is appointing someone outside the realm of the board to do an internal audit, in effect, like a letter of review. Is that correct?
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I believe they're providing us with a reader, so that's correct.
A reader's review.
Yeah.
So there will then never be an audit, a complete audit under this current audit of the library books.
So there could be if council requested it. So if there was a reason to bring forward like a full audited review, then council could request that according to the bylaw. It leaves it open for them to have this method, but also if things change in the future to request a full audit.
So I know, you know, the library budget it's not extraordinary by any means, but it is mercurial in some ways. And so I do think that as long as council, it's under council's purview to ask for an audit. I understand that if we ask for the audit, we'll probably be paying the bill too, which is actually a good thing, because the library certainly suffered by having to pay auditors to do those books. So if that's the understanding, I'm very happy with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. No other questions for administration this time. I would like to entertain a motion for first reading, please.
Deputy Mayor, I would move that council give first reading to bylaw number 22-14, being the Municipal Library Board bylaw.
Thank you. You've all heard that. All in favor? Great. Does anyone want to do second reading? Come on, you guys.
Hot potato.
All right.
I would like to, Your Worship, thank you. I would like to move that council give second reading to bylaw number 22-14, being the Municipal Library Board bylaw.
Thank you. And with that, I will open up for any questions or comments or debate about the bylaw. Councillor Wiley, go ahead.
So the big debate during the committee of the whole was the restriction of a councillor acting as chair. I reread this and I didn't see anything about that. So is that been taken out of this bylaw?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Langmay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. As some people may know, but I'll mention it for the public, Councillor Wiley and myself do sit on the Town of Strathmore Library Board, and I have had discussions with them regarding this bylaw that I know that you also consulted with them on, and I'm very appreciative of that. One feedback that I did receive from them is just some concern over board membership being restricted to residents of the Town of Strathmore. Given the significant number of people that do live outside of our community, that do use our library, love our library. Are there any, is there anything restricting us legally from being able to, other than this bylaw, should it pass, is there any legislation or regulations that actually prohibit us from including people from, say, outside the municipality?
No, there's no legal things as far as I know. Yeah, nothing.
Okay, so, and this is a departure from the previous version of the bylaw that we currently had in place until now, right?
Yes, that's correct. But I believe up until this point, they didn't know or have Wheatland County residents actively on the board.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. It's something that we might want to There are some members of the library who have expressed interest, not only in serving that live in Wheatland County, but also currently serving members that are considering moving to the county, who would no longer be eligible to serve on the library board. And there's some fairly senior board members that I would dearly hate to lose. Could you maybe expand a little bit more on why this decision was made? Why this change was decided?
Yeah, so it's just at this point, the town is the one providing the funding for it. And so in order for us to put forward this bylaw, we just believe that to be good neighbors, it would be better if Wheatland County was able to you know, if there was this discussion to have, it'd be nice if the board and Wheatland County had it before we unilaterally act in this decision. So it's not saying that this couldn't ever happen, but just at this point, administration feels it would be better to work with Wheatland County.
But to be clear, Wheatland County, so we are making the change without, are we making the change without speaking to Wheatland County then?
So maybe I can just help clarify. So I think, yes, we're making the change, but as Chris mentioned, currently we don't actually have any members that are from Wheatland County. So even though that's been a provision of the bylaw, it doesn't appear that it's something that has been exercised by the town. What we're saying is now that we're passing a new bylaw, if you want to, that we certainly could. And there are provisions in the Libraries Act around intermunicipal library boards, and that's certainly within council's purview. And if that's something that you would like to do, what we're encouraging council to really consider is, you know, in alignment with council's strategic plan about being good neighbors and good partners, is that have the conversation with Wheatland first, so that you're on the same page moving forward together, and we're not appointing members, their residents, without even consulting them, right? So I think that's more the philosophy. It's not that we're against it. We're actually very much for it. We just want to make sure that, again, the process is done in a way that respects the relationship with our neighbors.
Okay. And just to round out the questions, this policy, is this consistent with other boards and committees that we have within town that are under town management and control? Or agreements, therefore?
Yeah, this is very similar and similar to other municipal library board bylaws.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's no further questions or comments, so I'll call the question for second reading. All in favor? Thank you. And who would like to do the unanimous consent?
Sure,
Councillor
I'll give the
Wiley.
council unanimous consent to third and final reading of bylaw number 22-14 being the Municipal Library Board bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor of that? Thank you. All right,
And-
Councilor Langmaid.
Your Worship, I would like to move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 22-14 being the Municipal Library Board bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? Thank you. And thank you very much. Okay.
I can make a motion if you want.
Sorry,
On camera, right?
Oh.
We're doing?
Councillor Langmaid, I believe you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you. If this is the appropriate time under councillor information and
Yeah.
inquiries. Thank you very much. I'd like to take today, June 1st marks the beginning of Pride Month, a special time to celebrate the diversity and many contributions of the LGBTQIA2S+ communities across Canada, and to reflect on the road toward inclusion, equality, and appreciation. Today, I wish to remind the LGBTQ community that they are loved and cherished, and that I see you for who you are, deserving of dignity, respect, and support. I deeply appreciate your contributions to the cultural fabric of our town, and I am committed to making Strathmore a welcoming place where everyone is valued. It's also time to remember the trailblazing activists that risked everything to fight for equality. Folks like Derwin Vrind, an Edmontonian who was instrumental in the fight to have sexual orientation protected under the Alberta Human Rights Code in 1998. Or Everett Clippert, a Calgarian whose legal battles, after being the last Canadian arrested for simply being a gay man in 1960, ultimately paved the path for Canada to decriminalize homosexuality between consenting adults in 1969. We owe so much to the change makers who came before us and to the people that continue to fearlessly share their stories and advocate for meaningful change and progress for the betterment of their community. Their journeys weren't and aren't easy, and significant challenges remain today. Members of gender and sexually diverse communities continue to face discrimination, disparity, and violence, and these challenges are further amplified for people with intersecting lived experiences, including people with disabilities, Indigenous, Black, and racialized people. This month, we honor the resilience of the LGBTQIA2S+ people who are fighting to live authentically and freely. By living their truth and advocating for the rights and protection of gender and sexually diverse individuals, LGBTQ Canadians have helped create a safer and more inclusive country for all. Thank you so much for your contributions to our community, and happy Pride.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Peterson, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to speak relevant to the conversation that we had when our staff sergeant was here with regards to restorative practice. And I know that what he was speaking to was youth justice, which is quite different. And there is a movement in our community right now to react to the restorative practice venues that are taking place across the province, and to be able to move those community policing models into a community context, particularly into schools that are willing to work within that realm. There is a theory of reintegrative shaming within this process that has been proven in an evidence base that it has the greatest capacity to reintegrate and reconnect youth in such a way that they are not disconnected, disenfranchised, or alienated, which are the three common denominators in young people who commit hugely violent acts. So I believe that in the very near future there will be a community initiative coming forward to this room that will be asking for consideration for joint efforts around restorative practice. Not money, but effort. And I just wanted to apprise Council of that, and to watch for information that's coming around this whole idea of restorative practice. I think it's something that will resonate in this community and will have a major impact on safety for our community going forward. Thank you, Your Worship. And at this time, if you're willing, Your Worship, I would make a motion.
Yes, please.
I would move that Council move in camera to discuss items related to Section 24, subsection 1A of the Freedom and Information and Protection of Privacy Act at 7:47 p.m.
All right. Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? All right. We will move in camera. Is that it?